Welcome back. One of y'all asked the mayor or one of the deputies if y'all could ask questions. That's a great question. In Tennessee, you can. In fact, when I was a trial judge in Murfreesboro, they developed a pilot project where there were 8 judges across the state that tried that and worked really well. That's the good news. The bad news, I did not set it up this time. So I need to take care of that before we start the trial. So that's all bad. But yes, the answer to Tennessee, if I would have done that, and it's in the discretion of the court whether or not to do that or not. But I decided not to. So that's my bad. But a really good question. Okay, next witness. Darren Rogers. Okay. Mr. Rogers, just up to the big sister. Go raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. You have a seat. If you'll tell me both your first name and last name and spell it out.
Jimmy, Jimmy, Rogers, Rogers.
Thank you, sir. Any questions about the statement?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Rogers, where are you employed?
Raceway Convenience and Video in Whipple.
And how long have you been working there?
We built it when I was 9 in 1989.
So this is a family business?
Yes, sir.
And have you pretty much worked there all your adult life?
Yes, sir.
And were you familiar with the Valley Pawn Shop?
Yes, sir.
And in relation to some of the jurors may not be as familiar with Whipple as others, where is your shop in relationship to the pawn shop?
I'm about a block south and west, opposite side of the road, but south, maybe a block.
And I want to go back to May the 17th of 2016 when the fire occurred at the pawn shop. And were you working that day?
I came in at 3, so it seemed like it happened right after I got to work.
That afternoon?
Yes, sir.
And how did you learn something was happening?
I could, it seemed like somebody came in and said, kind of started questioning, and we could start seeing smoke. And so then I started looking to see what was going on.
And I'm sure you could hear the fire trucks?
Yeah.
So you knew something was going on?
Yeah, just thought it was a fire.
And I would assume during the course of the evening people came in and talked about it?
Yeah.
Did you at some point, were you contacted that evening by law enforcement to be looking for anything in particular?
Yes, sir.
And what were you asked to look for?
A red truck with a rebel flag.
And did you look at your surveillance tapes?
Yes, sir.
Did you find anything that really matched it?
No, just I could see, as far as that view from our cameras that far, I could see blurry red trucks. I was actually at that time looking for a rebel flag. Like I thought they meant like a flag hanging off the back of the truck, like, and so I couldn't see anything. I took a couple of snaps that showed that I was trying to find red trucks, but.
At some point, Mr. Rogers, did a red truck with a rebel flag license plate pull into your parking lot?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember about what time that was?
I think it was later on. I don't know, possibly. I think it was at 9, like 9ish later.
After 9?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you take a picture of it?
I took a picture.
And why did you take a picture of it?
Because if something happened.
You were concerned that something might happen to you? You were just being cautious?
Somebody finds my phone.
Okay. And Rogers, I'll show you a photograph and I'll ask, can you identify that?
Yes, sir.
And is that a picture that you took?
Yeah, I was standing, I just happened to be standing at the booths talking at the front of the store when it pulled up in the window, so I took it.
With your
cell phone.
Cell phone, okay. We mark that as an exhibit, please.
Okay.
And we'll put that up on the screen, and we put exhibit 11, and I think actually, Mr. Rogers, you can kind of see you in the background there reflected in the window. Is that you taking the picture?
Yeah.
And did someone come into the store who'd been driving that truck?
Yeah.
And who was that?
Miss Kilgore.
And did you know Miss Kilgore?
Yeah.
And just from the store?
Yeah.
And is that her seated between her lawyers?
Yeah, it sure is.
And did you have any conversation with Ms. Kilgore about the events of the evening?
Yeah, I sure did.
What did she tell you about the fire? Did you ask her?
She came in and she walked over. She kind of looked around and walked over to me and she said, "What's going on at the road?"
What'd you tell her?
I said, there's a fire. And
Where it was?
I think I said, yeah, there's a fire at the pawn shop.
And what'd she say about that?
She said, oh, really? And I said, yeah. I said, I think he may be in it. And she said, oh, really? And then she said, I was just up there. And I said, I know.
When did she say she was up there?
She said it right in that first conversation. She said she'd just been up there earlier.
Earlier that day?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did she tell you whether she'd gotten anything that day from the pawn shop?
Yeah, later on she said that she'd bought some stuff, and she said she'd stayed there about an hour, and she bought some stuff, and then took me out to her truck and showed me the receipt where the transaction receipt.
From the pawn shop?
Yes, sir. I assumed.
Okay. Bring up exhibit. No, we introduced it. Hold on. Mr. Rogers, she came in, she talked to you for a little bit. Did she use the restroom or anything in that visit?
That visit, I don't think so. No, I think we went back outside, and it seems like she showed me that receipt and all that, and I said, well, let me make a phone call and see what's going on here. So I stepped away just 10 feet, and I called Rodney.
And Rodney would be the police chief at the time?
Yes, sir.
Did you tell him she was there?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody came to talk to her at that point, did they?
No, he said there was a lot going on in the background. I could tell it was really loud, and I said I got the red truck here. I said, do you want to talk? Do you want them to come up there, or do you want to come down to the store? And I could tell he was like kind of talking going on, and then he said what? And I said, the red truck. She's standing in front of me. What do you want me to do? And he said, she's there? And I said, yeah. And he said, blow her off. And I said, what? And he said, well, they're still working on evidence and stuff, so we don't need to talk to her right now. And I said, okay.
So she left?
Yeah, I told her that must have been a mistake, or I thought they needed to talk to her, and they may not right now or whatever, but I told her that, they'd want to talk to her because they thought she was one of the last ones there, which led to that, her telling me that earlier.
Did she come back again?
Yeah.
And about how much later did she come back?
Can't remember it. Maybe an hour to 2 hours, I guess. Maybe we closed at 12. If that was at 9:45 or so, then it could have been within 2 hours later or so, hour to 2 hours later.
Before you closed?
Yes, sir.
And did you have did she go into the restroom at that time?
Yeah, they called me back and told me that they wanted to see her, that they were looking for her. And when it wasn't long after that, she walked in.
So did you notify them she was there?
Yeah.
And did some of the officers come?
Yeah.
And did she go in the restroom?
Mm-hmm.
About how long did she stay in the restroom?
It was quite some time. I mean, 10 to 20 minutes, I would say. I don't know, time flies when I was trying to make phone calls and stuff because I didn't know what was going on and was trying to do what they asked, but then, So I would say 10 to 20 minutes because they had time for me to call, them to come. They came in the store and probably stood for 5 minutes outside the door before she could come out.
Do you remember whether she had any visible injuries?
Yeah, she had a bandage on her hand or finger. We could see fresh white bandaging.
Did you see any blood?
Mm-hmm. There's blood coming through it.
You can see blood coming through it?
And that's where, it caught our attention.
Sure.
When she walked in.
Did she ever say anything, Mr. Rogers, that you remember about going to a laundromat?
No.
Okay. Just one moment. Sure. Mr. Rogers, one other question. She was not wearing any kind of gloves when she came in the store, was she?
Gloves? No, I don't think so. No.
Thank you. That's all.
Morning, Mr. Rogers.
How you doing?
Hey, couple questions. I'm a little confused. How many times was she at the store? Well, let me withdraw the question. She was at your store at least 2 times while you were there.
2 visits, yeah.
Okay. And you started work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon approximately, and daylight outside, correct? And the first visit, it was 9 p.m., correct? Approximately.
I think so, yeah.
Did you, before that, you had received a call from Rodney Easterly saying, basically, be on the lookout for a red truck?
Red truck with a rebel flag.
Okay. And that was from Rodney Easterly? And that was earlier in the evening, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Kilgore comes in, and you've seen her in the store a whole bunch of times, correct? I mean, you know her from the store
From
at
the
least
store.
a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
I mean, over years. Is that fair?
I would say so.
Okay. Comes in fairly regularly over that period of time as well. And I know you're shaking your head, but we need a yes or a
Yes, sir.
no. Okay. And you have interacted with her on a lot of occasions over the period of time,
Sure.
correct? Was there anything, there was nothing unusual in her, the way she acted or anything like that, correct?
No, pretty calm.
And she came in, and the first time you were like, oh, there's a truck out there, and I've been told to look out for her, and so let me call Rodney Easterly, correct?
Right. I didn't know it was a her. I just knew red truck was, I didn't know who was in the truck.
Okay. When you called Rodney Easterly the first time, you didn't know who was driving the truck?
When I called Rodney, she'd already got out, and we had the conversation, and I said, let me check and see.
Right.
It was,
And you told her that they were looking for a red truck, correct?
right.
And in connection with the fire, correct?
Right.
She didn't run.
Nope.
She made that phone call 10 feet away, correct?
Yeah.
She probably heard what was going on, correct?
I told her what I was going to do.
You told her you were going to call Rodney Easterly and see about the fire,
yeah.
and she didn't run. She didn't change her demeanor. And Rodney, for some reason, said, don't need her, or something like that, basically.
Yeah. Right.
She went about her business. You went about your business. Okay, and I know you're shaking your head.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay. And she even comes back to the store later that day.
Yes, sir.
Or, I'm sorry, later that
night.
evening.
Yeah.
2 hours later, roughly?
Approximately.
Hour and a half, 2 hours?
Yeah.
Calm demeanor, just a normal, everyday Angela Kilgore, correct?
Yeah.
You call and tell her maybe the police want her?
They called back.
Okay.
Said that they had enough evidence that they were now looking for.
Okay. But they didn't, so at 9 o'clock they didn't have the evidence, but then later they told you they did, correct?
They were still gathering it down at the end, and they said, yes, they definitely wanted to talk to her later
Okay.
on in the second conversation.
So you made the phone call to Rodney Easterly, and she didn't run.
She was in the bathroom.
Okay, she went to the bathroom, and you were kind of, let me back up. You went into the bathroom kind of as soon as she left, correct?
After they all left,
Well, did you go into the bathroom right after and search for anything that was...
They were looking for the keys.
I'm sorry?
they were looking for keys.
And
Whoever
Did you
left.
find any keys?
No, sir.
Did you find any bandages?
I don't remember. I looked in the garage for keys, but I don't know that I looked for bandages or anything like that. I was looking for keys.
Well, if she was bleeding, you would think you'd be looking for bandages, correct?
It's a women's restroom in a convenience store.
Okay.
I was skittish about looking in the garbage can anyway.
But you looked in the garbage can for the keys, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you even go up into the ceiling and the drop ceiling and look for stuff?
Yes, sir.
Nothing there, correct?
Yes. Well, it drops off. I can't see. We stood up on a ladder, but you can't see down in once it drops off. It drops back off to the ground.
Okay. Well, that's been 2 years ago. You ever find any keys or bloody
No, sir.
items? And you were skittish, but you actually took the time to take a ladder and go up and look around.
I was skittish about the garbage. I wasn't skittish about looking in my walls.
Okay. Did the police ever come back and look in your garbage?
I can't remember if I was there, but I think they did come in. I don't know about the garbage. I think they come and try to find the keys. They did find.
No further questions?
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Step down and please step forward. 3 minutes.
We'll call Laura Hodge.
Laura Hodge, please. Ma'am, if you'll step your hands to me, please. Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Give a seat. If you could spell your first name and last name for me, please.
Laura Hodge, Laura Hodge.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Ms. Hodge, where are you employed?
I'm employed at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and I work in the Nashville Crime Laboratory.
And you are also a special agent with Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, is that correct?
That's correct.
And a forensic scientist.
Yes, sir.
And Agent Hodge, could you tell the jurors what your educational background is?
December of 1990, I received a Bachelor of Science degree from Middle Tennessee State University. I majored in biology and minored in chemistry.
And did you go to work somewhere after that?
Very briefly, I worked in a quality control laboratory for a company that made over-the-counter products, but I went to work for TBI in December of 1992.
And what branch of TBI did you go to work for?
In the Nashville Crime Laboratory for the first 19 years of my career, I was assigned to the microanalysis unit in the crime laboratory.
And did you obtain specialized training in microanalysis?
Yes, I did.
And Ms. Hodge, without belaboring the point, you testified as an expert in microanalysis over the years.
Yes, I have.
I believe it. I think you've been in this district.
Yes, sir, I have.
And did you move into another area of forensic science after 19 years?
Yes, sir. January of 2012, I transferred to the Firearms and Tool Mark Identification Unit in the laboratory.
And did you obtain additional training in those specialties?
Yes, sir, I did.
And Agent Hodge, have you testified as an expert in those areas?
Yes, sir, I have.
I believe in various courts in Tennessee and probably in the 12th Judicial.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we'd offer as an expert in the area of firearms identification.
Dr. Ward, down in that area? Okay, I'll let her give a review.
And also, Agent Hodge, in addition to your other duties, you, I won't say this is like CSI, but the lab people do go to crime scenes from time to time, is that correct?
That's correct. We have members of a violent crime response team made up of units throughout the laboratory.
And in May of 2016, were you involved in the violent crime response team?
Yes, I was.
And what was your role in that team?
In May of 2016, I was a team leader of a violent crime response team.
And as far as, can you describe to the jury what the violent, or the VCRT, we use the initials for simplicity, what do y'all do? What's the purpose of it?
We are called out to crime scenes to assist other TBI agents in the field or local law enforcement agencies in the processing and collecting of evidence that has a forensic value that we take back to the laboratory to analyze. We also document crime scenes with photographs and videos and diagrams.
And as part of your training as a special agent, have you received training in collecting evidence and documenting crime scenes?
Yes, because of my tenure with TBI, most of my training early on came from actually going out and working crime scenes. As we've progressed, newer agents that come on, we have formalized training that is involved for them to work on a violent crime response team.
Do you teach some of those trainings?
Yes, sir, I do.
And Agent Hodge, as far as being called out to a crime scene, it wouldn't be every crime scene. It had to be something at least out of the ordinary. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct. We don't go to every crime scene in the state of Tennessee.
In this particular instance, how were you notified and what time were you notified?
I was notified by our regional crime laboratory supervisor on May the 17th at approximately 8:49 p.m.
And were you advised of what the situation was?
She gave me a brief description of what the situation was, yes.
And did you then assemble your team?
The first thing I did was call the special agent on the scene as my point of contact to also get more information from him, and then I began contacting my team members.
And would the special agent on scene have been Agent Wilson?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And that's Mark Wilson?
Yes, sir.
And at that time, he was assigned to Berrien and I think Squatchy County.
That's correct.
And you all, you assembled your team, and approximately what time did you leave Nashville?
We assembled at the laboratory between 9:20 and 9:30 is when we started to collect our equipment and leave the TBI crime lab in Nashville.
And I assume you all traveled in a special vehicle of some sort?
Yes, sir, we have a crime scene vehicle.
And how many special agents were on the crime scene team?
One moment, please. There were 5 other members other than myself.
And the folks that are on the crime scene team, Agent Hodge, they are all special agents for TBI?
Yes,
And they all come from the crime lab in various fields?
yes.
I want to show you what's been marked previously as Exhibit 4, and is that the location where you all went?
Yes, this is the front entrance to the location we arrived at.
And we put that up on the screen. And can you just briefly describe what you found when you got there?
When we arrived, of course, there had been a fire. This business did not have any electricity, so it was completely dark inside. This was a business, I would call it, I guess, a type of a pawn shop that had a lot of items inside. It was very, very crowded with various things in the building. But this is the front of the building, and the crime scene team, the crime scene tape that has taped it off.
When you got there, was the building vacant? The officers had all withdrawn from the building, is that right?
Yes, there was no one in the building when we arrived.
Okay. And what is the process that your team goes through in working a scene like that? In this particular scene, what you all do?
Initially, as the team leader, whoever is on site, the investigator, in this case it was Alan Weeks, briefed me and took myself and another special agent, Dawn Sweeney, we walked through the crime scene to get an idea of what we had and some things that had been seen prior to our arrival. Other team members, while I'm doing that, they're getting equipment together, such as the video camera and the photographic camera, to start doing the documentation.
Was there a fair amount of blood in this particular crime scene?
Yes, I observed blood in the crime scene when I entered into it initially.
To show you another photograph, which has been previously marked as Exhibit 5, and can you identify that?
Yes, I can.
And Detective Johnson, if you put Exhibit 5 up on the screen. And could you describe to the jurors, Agent Hodge, what we are looking at in this picture, and I'll give you the pointer if you want to. That button is the laser.
Okay, thank you. This area here, this is the front of the area. To logistically show you, the picture you just saw, the front door is out to my right. So this is the area, this is the victim over in the corner. There's actually an office type area, but I would call this front area the main area of the store.
And there are yellow evidence markers. Are those items placed by your team?
Yes, they are.
And one thing, Agent Hodge, when you all arrive at a scene like this, do you know what may or may not be important as far as evidentiary value?
Yes, we are given information, of course, but we are also looking for, as I stated earlier, forensic evidence such as blood, firearms, ammunition, latent prints, any kind of trace evidence. Of course, in this particular case, because there had been a fire, the fire department had gone in and done their job and put the fire out, any trace evidence is pretty much eradicated. So we have an idea sometimes of what we're looking for, but it's a fluid type of processing for us. We initially may see things, and then as we continue to do our processing, other things may be revealed to us.
And would it be fair to say that you may collect items at the scene that turn out not to have any evidentiary value?
Yes, that's correct.
But it's better to collect more things than less things. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
You've got evidence markers in that photo, and I'll show you. I'll show you 3 photographs, and I'll ask if you can identify those.
Yes, I can.
We would mark them as exhibits 12, 13, 14. Chad, if you would put 7115 down on the screen. In Hodge, we are looking at exhibit number 12, and can you describe what we are looking at in this picture?
This is a picture of an area close to the victim, and we have the trash can here and items around the trash can that we have marked with marker 15.
And the next photograph is a little bit closer in, and that would be 7116, and that's exhibit 13. And is that the same view, or is it just a closer up view? And is there a glove in the middle of that?
Yes, you'll see here there are a pair of purple latex gloves, and it appears to have RBS, what we call reddish-brown stain, or blood, but we call it a reddish-brown stain because it's not been tested to see if it is blood. And that is what marker 15 is marking.
If you bring up exhibit next, the 7117, which would be exhibit 14, and this is a closer photo. And is this an item, Agent Hodge, that you collected because you felt it might have evidentiary value?
Yes, sir, it is.
And the reddish-brown stains, you believe that could possibly be blood, is that?
Yes, we believe the reddish-brown stain is blood, and that's why we collected it.
And as far as the testing, the blood testing of DNA, that's not an area that you do in the lab, is that right?
No, I do not do that testing, that's correct.
And now I notice you have an evidence marker 15. And let me show you. Sam, I'll mark this as the next exhibit 15. And I'll ask if you can identify what we have marked also as exhibit 15.
Yes, I can.
And what is that, Agent Hodge?
This is the paper towel and the rubber glove with RBS at marker 15.
And that was collected at the scene, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And once that was collected, what did you do with it?
Once it's collected, as we collect items of evidence in a crime scene, we will, of course, place them into a brown paper bag typically. We will seal this evidence, and then we will place it on our truck in a secure location on the truck. And
once you get back to the crime lab, what happens with the evidence?
Typically, because of the hour we get back to the crime laboratory, it's not working hours, so our evidence receiving unit is not open. And we're usually tired. We will take all the evidence we collect, we will place it into a fume hood at the laboratory, and I will lock that fume hood and I will maintain that key until we can reassemble the next day and submit the evidence into our evidence receiving area.
And is that the process you follow with the evidence that you collected at this scene?
Yes.
Okay, including Exhibit 15?
Yes.
Or we move that into evidence? Let me ask you one thing. Agent Hodge, I noticed you placed that in a brown paper bag. Why do you all use brown paper bags for that type of evidence?
Brown paper bags are the choice of packaging for most of our evidence because it is breathable. It allows things to not mold. If you put something in a plastic bag and seal it up and it's wet, such as with RBS or any type of liquid, it can have a tendency to mold over time. So for forensic evidence, the majority of the forensic evidence is put in a brown paper bag.
To keep it from molding?
Yes.
I will show you what's marked, and I'll ask if you can identify this object in the evidence bag.
Yes, I can identify this.
And what is that, Agent Hodge?
This is a lighter fluid can with reddish-brown stain.
And how did you receive that?
This evidence, let me make sure. This evidence I received from the canine handler for the state bomb and arson.
And would that have been that evening?
Yes.
Or the early morning?
Early morning, yes.
And as far as the canine unit coming in, did you all work the scene at the same time, or did they come in after you were done?
They were there, and we did the majority of our processing for the evidence prior to the canine handler coming in. I had corresponded with him, and we had agreed that he would let us do our evidence recovery and documentation, and then once we were at a point that it was okay for him to bring his canine in, we would step out and let him bring his canine in, and that's what we did.
So you had concluded your processing?
For the most part, yes.
And the lighter fluid can that you've identified, did you take that into your custody at the scene?
Yes, I did.
And you checked that into the crime lab with the other items?
Yes, I received this from Daniel Foster at the scene. Then I placed this into our fume hood and locked it with the other evidence we collected, and then I submitted this to our crime laboratory.
Mark as necessary. Agent Hodge, you also received several cans of charred debris from Agent Foster.
Yes, sir, I did.
So you like that collective 17?
I can do them individually or collectively.
Let's do collectively 17.
Let's do it. Don't see. While we're doing this, I'll hand you what's been marked as 17A, B, and C. And Agent Hodge, can you identify those items?
Yes, I can.
And what are they?
These are the 3 cans of fire debris that I received from Agent Daniel Foster.
And did you follow the same procedure in terms of taking them to your custody and submitting to the lab?
Yes, sir, I did.
And how do we make those the next exhibit? 17A, B, and C, they'll be collective. And as far as the testing of the fire debris, that's not something that you do?
Not anymore, since I went to the firearms unit.
You used to do.
Yes, sir, I did.
This is Exhibit 18. And Agent Hodge, I'll ask if you can identify that item.
Yes, I can.
And what is it?
These are buccal swabs from Angela Kilgore.
And how did they come to be in your possession?
These were received at the laboratory, at the fire scene, or at the crime scene, from Special Agent Mark Wilson, and Special Agent Mara Smith received those.
And did you take those into your custody?
I did.
And when you say buccal swab, what is that?
My understanding of the buccal swabs for the DNA unit, it is a cheek swab.
And was that be from Angela Kilgore?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And you took that with you to the crime lab?
Yes, sir, I did.
And that would have been submitted along with the other items, is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I'm going to move that into evidence.
17?
18. Let's take that. As part of your work at the scene, did you prepare what we refer to as a crime scene diagram?
I did not personally prepare it. One of the special agents on the team did prepare that.
And are you familiar with it?
Yes, sir, I am.
I will hand you what I have, and hopefully it's the same as what you have.
Yes, it is.
And we would make that the next exhibit. And Chad, we bring the diagram up. See exhibit 19. And can you describe, Agent Hodge, what it is we're looking at? You could use the pointer to point out the A and B are highlighted, and those are, can you describe what those are?
Okay, first of all, what we're looking at is a bird's eye view of that front room that where we concentrated our area for evidence. The first picture we looked at earlier was standing at the front door is here. And then the second picture we looked at earlier was taken from approximately this area in toward where the victim was. The markers highlighted A and B when we measure evidence into a crime scene, we have to have a reference point. So we have affixed areas that we have as reference points so that we can triangulate the evidence into the scene. We measure from A and we measure from B to get a placement where the evidence is located.
And we've introduced,
Yes.
would this be exhibit 15? It says under trash can, it's hard to read, but is that where you located exhibit 15?
Yes, 15 under, and it says under trash can, that is where the rubber glove that we looked at earlier was located.
And there's the trash can, there's the photograph of the white trash can, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
And in that scene, obviously you've collected various items that you submitted to the lab, but sometimes all the items don't turn out to have evidentiary value. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that is a fair statement.
Now you are a firearms identification expert.
Yes.
I always want to say ballistics, and I know that's wrong. Did you receive a bullet as part of your work in this case?
Yes, I did.
And I will hand you an item, and I'll ask you to identify that.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Yes, I can identify this.
And what is that?
This would be the bullet taken from the victim at autopsy.
It could be Jerry Ridge.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And how did you come to be in possession of that?
Excuse me. It was submitted into our laboratory, and I was asked to do an examination on this bullet.
And that's the next exhibit. Did you get this from Mark Wilson?
Mark Wilson submitted it to our laboratory, but I did not personally receive it from
But
him.
it was received in as far as the laboratory receiving evidence, you have evidence technicians who receive the evidence, is that right?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
then when you're ready to do your work on it, how do you go about obtaining it?
I am notified, I'm given a folder that says that I have evidence related to a case, and then I take my folder to the evidence receiving unit and I ask them to pull my piece of evidence from the main vault. They will give it to me and it will be in my possession while I do my examination.
And is that how all the lab testing works?
Yes.
And we marked this as Exhibit 20, and I moved that into evidence. And did you examine the bullet in Exhibit 20?
Yes, I did.
And were you able to determine what type of bullet it was, what caliber, et cetera?
Yes, sir.
And how did you go about doing that?
I examine visually the bullet when it's submitted. I will count the number of lands and grooves on the bullet, and I will measure those lands and grooves. And then based on my examination and my measurements, I'm able to tell what caliber it is, and I'm also able to give a list of firearms that could possibly have fired that bullet.
And you identified this bullet as a what caliber bullet?
It is a .25 auto caliber bullet.
And were you ever given a weapon that matched the bullet?
No, sir, I was not.
So, other we know it's a .25 caliber bullet, but you've not been able to identify the weapon which fired it.
Not specifically, no.
And Agent Hodge, let me hand you a copy of, I believe it's your report.
Yes, sir, this is a copy of my official firearms report.
And there's other items you tested on there, but the only item we're really concerned about would be the bullet from the 25 caliber bullet.
Yes, that's correct.
There are other things you tested, but none of them matched, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. We make that exhibit 28-1. I get it just a moment, Ron. That would be all my questions. Cross-examination.
Hi, Ms. Hodge, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank
Good.
you.
Couple questions. RBS always stands for reddish brown stains.
In the world that I work in, yes, sir, we refer to that as reddish brown stain.
Okay, not red blood stains.
No, sir, reddish brown stain.
Okay, and that's because you don't know what it is when you get it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And maybe blood, but you need to test for it, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And initially you do a presumptive test, correct?
Yes, presumptive tests can be done, yes.
Okay. And you do a presumptive test, and even though that presumptive test comes back positive, you're still not sure whether it is human blood, correct?
I believe this is her expertise.
So the rejection is.
Objection to, she's outside the scope of her expertise.
Okay. What do you say, counsel?
Well, I can ask a follow-up, Judge, if I may.
I'll sustain objections if you would about that.
Did you collect RBS from the crime scene?
I personally did not collect the RBS at the crime scene, but there was someone on the team that did.
And you supervise the team?
Yes, sir.
And you know what RBS is?
Yes, sir.
And you know, have you ever done presumptive tests?
I have helped people do presumptive tests, yes, on the scene.
Okay. And you know what presumptive tests do, correct?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. And you've testified you've been with TBI for a long time as a special agent, forensic scientist, as well as crime scene individual.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Again, I'll ask you, just because you collect the RBS and it tests presumptively positive does not necessarily mean it's human blood.
No, it does not. It's just a presumptive test for blood.
And you know there are tests that confirm that it is blood, human blood.
From my general knowledge from the serology DNA unit, they can do more testing to be more specific to see if it is human blood, yes.
Okay. By the way, you got back to the crime lab at 8:55 in the morning, correct?
I believe that is correct. Let me make sure so I don't misspeak. Yes, 8:55 in the morning.
What time does the lab open for a collection of evidence?
They are open at 8 o'clock.
But you put it under the hood, correct? In a locker?
That's correct. As I said earlier, it can be, I'm sorry, after hours or fatigue on the part of the crime scene team because we've worked all night or long hours.
Okay, let's talk about that. You got notified at 8:49, is that about right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's PM at night,
Yes, sir.
okay? And the fire started, do you know what time the fire started? Have you been told?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay. Are you aware that the fire started, the first phone call came in at 4:51?
No, sir, I'm not aware of that.
What time did you understand this incident to have happened, if you did?
I don't believe I was ever told the exact time or time when the incident happened.
And that wouldn't be important to you?
Prior to our arrival, not really.
Okay. Does it matter to you what happens prior to your arrival?
We are mainly concerned with once we arrive at the scene and what we're going to do at the scene, processing it.
Okay. But you do care what happens prior to the scene, right? Prior to you getting there, correct?
Well, I care as far as who's been in the scene or any damage that might be done to the scene prior to our entry. That's what I care about.
Okay. And in fact, you specifically told them to set up what you would call a perimeter, correct?
I don't know that I specifically told anyone to set up a perimeter. That is pretty much standard protocol.
Standard protocol for you or for the local Marion County Sheriff's Department?
That is generally standard protocol for any crime scene that I've been involved in.
Okay, do you know if that was done here?
When we arrived, there was a perimeter, yes.
Okay, do you know who had been in and out beforehand?
I do not know specifically who had been in and out.
Okay. And you don't know who had been there at the fire before it started?
No, sir. Mm-mm.
You don't know who was in the crime scene when the fire started? If there was anybody else besides the body? Correct?
No, sir, I do not know.
You don't know afterwards what individuals or how many people or anything like that were in there before you arrived?
No, specifically, I do not. I do know the fire department had been in there.
Okay, and you know that because the fire was out, correct?
Yes, and there was water all over the floors.
Okay. Who did you released the crime scene? That's your job to release the crime scene, right? As far as VCRT is concerned?
Typically, I release the crime scene.
Okay. And you released the crime scene to Rodney Easterly at 5:25 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned a purple glove on your direct testimony, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you find that or did somebody else find it?
I do not recall specifically the individual that found that or even if I found it. I don't recall.
Do you know who put it in the evidence bag?
Yes, I do.
Who was it?
Special Agent Morris Smith.
Okay, it wasn't you who put it in the bag?
No, sir, I did not personally collect the glove.
Okay. Ma'am, you've obviously received, well, let me back up. There's an official crime scene report, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that what you're looking at when?
Yes, sir, that's what I'm referencing.
Okay, good. And were there photographs included in your official crime scene report?
I do not include photographs on my official report, no.
How about in your case file?
Yes, they are part of my case file.
Okay. Let me show you. Were there any other gloves photographed at the crime scene?
I believe there were some gloves photographed as we processed the scene, yes.
And who were they from?
I'm not sure. The gloves were photographed after the victim's body had been removed. So I'm not sure if those gloves came from the state bomb and arson investigators that had been in, or from the individuals that had removed the body.
And they're not the same color as the purple glove, correct?
No, sir, I believe they were blue.
Okay. When you come into a crime scene, you're wearing personal protective equipment, correct?
Yes, sir, we are.
And the reason for the personal protective equipment is, one, for your own safety,
Yes,
and one, so you make sure that you don't bring in contaminants from the outside world into the crime scene.
yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, and there's a principle of forensics that basically you got to be careful of what you take in, because everybody leaves something no matter what, and they kind of may take something out. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're trying to kind of minimize at least what you bring in, correct? By wearing the personal protective equipment?
Yes, sir.
Now, personal protective equipment is up to each individual member of the VCRT team, correct?
Yes.
What they wear?
Yes, but we generally wear gloves. Everyone wears gloves.
Okay. But not everybody who entered the crime scene wears gloves, correct?
I'm sorry, repeat
But not
that.
everybody who entered the crime scene before you got there wore gloves.
How she would know that? What's she saying?
Do you know if everybody before you got there wore gloves?
I do not know.
What about, do booties come within the personal protective equipment of your VCRT team?
Yes, it is something we utilize.
Did you utilize it on that day, correct?
I don't recall if we did or not.
Okay. And certainly you have no knowledge as to whoever went in before your team got there, what they were wearing as far as booties or anything like that was concerned, correct?
That's correct, I have no knowledge.
Okay. It would not be protocol, at least, for members of the VCRT team to leave their gloves on the floor of the crime scene, correct?
That's correct. We typically do not leave any gloves or any personal protective equipment or any other items that we may use. One of the first things we do when we get there is set up a trash bag so that we can carry any of our gloves and other items back to the laboratory and dispose of in a biohazard properly.
Okay. So, whoever left those gloves there when you were done certainly was not following your protocol, correct?
That would be correct.
And not a good idea to leave gloves at a crime scene, correct?
We choose not to at the TBI with the violent crime response team. I can't speak for any other agencies.
Well, may I approach, Judge? Let me show you a photograph now.
Okay.
You recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
What is that photograph of?
This is an area in close proximity or where the body may have been in the crime scene.
Okay. And do you see a glove there?
Yes, I do.
And what color is the glove?
Blue.
Okay. Not similar in color to the one that was marked as with a marker 15, correct?
That's correct. Marker 15 was a purple glove.
Right. Okay. And did you see that glove there personally?
I don't recall if I did. Once again, this was after the body had been removed. We were close to finishing up, and I don't recall if I saw that glove that day or not.
Okay. Well, Judge, you recognize the crime scene?
Yes, sir.
And that's there. That's in your file, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'll offer it to him.
Any objection? No. Okay, we get a little more, next number exhibit.
I'd like to publish it to the jury.
Then you do get this place, what they have to get. What's the card? So ladies and gentlemen, y'all concluded that, when you go back and look, I don't want you to do a copy of all the exhibits. I'm probably not going to use separate bags, but all of this is going to be seen on something.
Ma'am, were you, there are kind of two parts to your testimony. One is a member of the VCRT team, and one is kind of as a firearms expert back at the lab. Is that fair?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. So you go out to the field, but you also work in the lab at other times. Would that be fair?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. So were you ever asked to test a .25 caliber Colt in this case?
Yes, sir, I was asked to examine one.
Okay. Can you tell us about that? Well, I'll withdraw the question. Where did you get it from?
That was submitted into the laboratory by Special Agent Mark Wilson.
Okay. When did you receive it?
If I may check to be accurate. I received that evidence on September the 13th, 2016.
Okay, and do you recall, I'll withdraw that question. What did you find in connection with that rifle?
The pistol?
I'm sorry, the pistol.
I examined the pistol and I determined it to be a Colt .25 auto caliber pistol.
And were you told where it came from?
No, sir, I was not.
Did you determine it to be the one that fired the bullets that you examined?
I determined that the pistol that was submitted did not fire the bullet that was taken from the victim at the autopsy.
And how many bullets did you receive that you believe to be from the autopsy?
I only received the one.
Okay, were there two bullets that you were told were at the autopsy or just one?
I only received one.
Just hang on 1 second, please. Do you know anything about a broken rifle or anything else like that? When I say broken rifle, one with a stock that's kind of broken or anything like that, non-functioning or out of the ordinary?
No, sir, I do not know anything about that.
Okay. Also, one last thing. I noticed, couldn't help but notice that when you're answering questions for me, you're looking at me, but for Mr. Strain, he asked a question and you look at the jury. Is that part of your training?
Well, Mr. Strain's questions were in depth where they weren't simple yes or no's, so I would turn to the jury and talk to them. Your questions were more a simple yes or no, so I would just answer yes or no without wobbling back and forth to the jury. But the jury is my audience and who I answer questions to.
Okay. And you received training at TBI for that, for how to testify, correct?
Yes, sir. We received training on courtroom demeanor and testimony, yes.
In fact, when you go to the TBI lab in Nashville, there's a big courtroom, mock courtroom set up, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's just so you can practice testimony.
We use it for a lot of things, but it is utilized by our forensics unit to help new employees learn the court systems and the demeanor.
Okay. And to look at the jury when Mr. Strain does and answer questions and things like that, correct?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. And the training in courtroom protocol is just part of your professional training, is that correct?
Objection leading, Your Honor.
Way this works is if he starts, he just
Very well.
Objection.
overruled.
This is part of your professional traiing?
Yes, sir.
The courtroom protocol?
Yes, it is.
And Agent Hodge, Mr. Lipton showed you a photograph of the area where the body was after the body had been removed. You recall looking at that?
Yes.
And there were some latex or some kind of gloves that crime scene people would use. Is that right? Shown in that picture?
Yes, that's correct.
And when you, could you bring up Exhibit 5? Bring up Exhibit 5, which depicts where the body was located, and there's various evidentiary markers. Actually, the body is noted as Exhibit 7 in yours. And do you show any of the latex gloves that Mr. Lipton was talking about in this photograph?
No, I don't see the latex gloves.
And had you seen latex gloves that did not come from a law enforcement source, is that something y'all would have photographed or made note of? That would work, would it not?
Objection, I don't know how she would know.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Objection, Judge. I'm not sure how she would know that.
Okay, I'll sustain. I'll let you rephrase the question.
Agent Hodge, would latex gloves in the presence of the body be an unusual thing when you arrived at the scene?
We would have noticed it, I believe, just like we did the other gloves under the trash can.
And when you worked the scene around the body, you did not notice any gloves. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Lipton also asked you some questions about the scene being secure. And of course, you don't know what went on before you got there. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
When you got there, and you've been to, I'm sure, several crime scenes over the years, is that right?
Yes, I have.
And Agent Hodge, did the scene appear to have been appropriately secured?
An objection.
How did she know whether it's appropriately secured for the 5 hours beforehand? She wasn't there.
All overruled. One answer.
Just when you got there, did it appear to be appropriately secured?
Yes, that's correct.
And you don't know what went on before you got there, obviously.
No, sir.
As far as the collection of red blood stains or reddish-brown stains, would it be your practice to collect or swab every item that has an RBS on it at a crime scene?
Yes, and again, that would be left up to the serology DNA analyst, but yes, swabbing all of the RBS areas is something we would do.
At an extensive scene like this where there's RBS on various items, is that something that y'all would normally do?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Ma'am, did you notice the purple glove as soon as you got there?
Not as soon as we got there, no.
As soon as you entered the building?
I don't know exactly when we noticed it. It was sometime during the processing of the scene, but I don't know an exact time of when it was noticed by anyone, myself or another team member.
Okay. Well, you don't recall seeing it.
When I first came in?
Right.
I don't recall when I first came in, no.
In fact, you don't even recall collecting it or who collected it.
Yes, sir, I believe I did say that Special Agent Morris Smith collected it.
Okay. And part of your case file includes notes from all your team members.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Including, I guess, Mary Smith and other people.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
If you can, my pages are page numbered, basically there's a number 39 in the upper right-hand corner. I don't know if you
Okay.
have it measured the same or numbered the same way.
Okay.
Do you see a notation about when marker 15 was documented and measured?
Yes, sir, I see that.
And it says 3:15 a.m., correct?
Yes.
And one second, Doug. And you arrived at the scene approximately after midnight, basically, 12:20 or someplace
Yes.
thereabouts, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And do you know if one of the agents went through the garbage can? Let me withdraw the question. Do you know if one of the agents went through the garbage pail and found the red glove, or it was just tipped over, the purple glove, or it was just tipped over? Let me withdraw the question. The garbage pail was not knocked over when you first got there, correct? It was not on its side.
I believe it was.
Okay, so nobody went through the garbage pail to look for a purple stain?
I don't believe there was anything in the garbage can. It had tipped over and the contents were on the floor.
Just 1 second, Judge.
I can talk to counsel. Tell them what exhibit it is, we'll bring it up. These are all pictures, so just tell them which one you want, we'll bring it up.
You bring up Exhibit 12. Obviously, items in the trash can, correct?
Yes, sir, I stand corrected. There are items in the trash can.
Okay. And is that the way you recall it to be when you first got in there?
Yes, sir.
I have no further questions.
I have nothing further to this witness.
All right, thank you. Sit down. 3 seconds before you go.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
Who's next?
Call Danny Foster.
Step to step for next to me, please. What do I mean? What the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Good to see you. You can tell me your first name and last name. So,
Daniel Foster, Daniel Foster.
questions?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Foster, where are you currently employed?
For the state of Tennessee Fire Marshal's Office.
And you were previously with Tennessee Bomb and Arson, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And there's just been some changes that your position has changed a little bit, is that right?
That is correct.
And how long have you been in the investigating fire business?
Since 2004,
And what kind of educational background do you have?
I have a bachelor's degree, general education. I have multiple years of training in the fire investigative, criminal investigative fields.
Did you have prior law enforcement experience before 2004?
I did.
And what was that?
I was a patrol officer for the Knoxville Police Department.
And then you went with the bomb and arson?
Yes, I was actually prior to leaving the Knoxville, or after leaving the Knoxville Police Department, I worked for the Knoxville Fire Department. And then I left the Knoxville Fire Department and worked in Y-12 Nuclear Weapons Facility in fire suppression, emergency medical, and left there and came to the state.
And when you came with the state, did you receive additional training in the cause and origin of fires?
Yes, I did.
And Mr. Foster, have you testified from time to time as an expert in this area
Yes, I have.
in the courts in Tennessee?
Yes.
Your Honor, we'd offer him as an expert in that area.
More down there.
And further, Mr. Foster, do you work with a dog, canine unit?
Yes, I do.
And we've heard the term K9 Leo, and who is K9 Leo?
So Leo is my partner that I work with, and he's a Labrador Retriever, and he has been trained to detect ignitable liquids.
Would that be referred to as accelerants?
Yes, sir.
And how does that training occur?
Well, presently we get our dogs from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, which has a canine branch in Front Royal, Virginia, and they take the dogs, they put them through a rigorous test. If the dog passed the test, they train them for about 8 to 10 weeks, and they train them to find ignitable liquids. Or ignitable liquids, just a liquid that'll burn. And so after they train those dogs for 8 to 10 weeks, then they select handlers, people that will handle the dog, and they bring them in to train with the dogs another 8 to 10 weeks and certify you through their organization and by chemistry as a team.
And you're now working with K9 Leo. Did you have a dog previously?
Yes, I did.
Was that your first dog?
No, that was actually my second dog. I've had
Second
3.
dog. So you've had 3 dogs altogether?
Yes.
And your second dog, what was your second dog?
That was Nani.
That's right. She was also a lab, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how long have you been working with K9 Leo?
Since approximately, I'll say 2013, 2014.
And K9 Nani, was she retired from being an accelerant dog?
She was.
I think you took her home, is that right?
I did.
All right. So you got K9 Leo. Did you go to the facility in Virginia for training with K9 Leo?
Yes, I did.
And did you go through the same process with your other dogs?
Yes, I did.
And as far as training with the dog, is there additional training you go through to maintain certification?
Yes, it is. On a daily basis, I train the dog, and that's how the program is set up for me to train the dog on a daily basis for at least an hour a day. And then we have a yearly recertification, and they hold it in different places in the U.S., and you'll take your dog. You're there for approximately a week, and you'll go through a certification, recertification process, as well as an in-service.
And Leo is strictly an accelerant finding dog, is that right?
Yes.
Leo's not looking for drugs or other types of things?
No.
Okay. And let me ask you, were you alerted about a fire at the Valley Pawn Shop in Whitwell, Tennessee in May of 2016?
Yes, I was.
And how were you notified of that?
I believe I was called, I don't remember, was it my supervisor or one of the investigators on the scene contacted me about bringing my dog home.
Okay. And did you go to the location?
I did.
And were there also other agents from Tennessee Bomb and Arson at the time on the scene?
Yes, there were.
Okay. And I believe Darby Hutchison was also there, but at that time she had just gone TBI, is that right?
That's correct.
And was she the team leader for the fire investigation?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point, did you bring K9 Leo into the fire scene?
Yes, I did.
And did you wait, were you know Ms. Hodge, TBI?
Yes.
Agent Hodge. And was her team done with their work before you entered with your dog?
I do not recall.
Okay. You remember probably what time you entered the...
I don't know the exact time that I entered the scene. It was dark. I don't remember what time I actually responded to it.
Okay. But when you got there, was the VCRT, the Violent Crimes Response Team, already there?
No, they were not there when I got
So you got there before they did?
Yes.
But you waited to enter the scene?
Yes, I think I actually entered the scene before they did. I'm thinking I did, but I'm just not sure. I remember them getting there.
As far as your protocol, would you bring your dog immediately into the scene, or would you go in first to see what the situation was?
So I would go in first to evaluate if it was a safe environment for the dog.
And when you finally did bring the dog in, had the body been removed, or was the body still there?
The body was still there.
Okay. And I noticed in reading something about this that you made a reference to calibrating Leo. How do you go about calibrating the dog before you go into a scene to search?
Okay. So how they teach you is they want you to put a drop of an ignitable liquid and accelerant, a liquid that'll burn, out somewhere away from the area that you're going to search. In this case, I did it, there was a little bit of grass back off. I put a drop out there, and then you take your dog out and let your dog find that. And once your dog finds it, it's considered to be calibrated. He has a change of behavior, and they consider that calibrating. And so he's ready to go in the scene and search.
So the dog knows it's time to work.
Yes, sir.
And did you take Leo into the crime scene?
I did.
And did Leo alert in any particular location?
He did. Leo had a change of behavior in several areas in the scene, in several areas. Particularly, though, we focused around the body.
And what was his behavior around the body?
The change of behavior for Leo is that once he has that change of behavior, which is he will sit, that lets me know that he's in what we call the scent cone. And once he does that, I'll ask him to show me, because I wanted to be a little more specific about where he is telling me there's some evidence for me to collect. And he will kind of alert with his snout by pointing or dipping his head, at least, in the area that I should take my sample from.
And did you collect debris from the samples that Leo alerted on?
Yes, I did.
And if I could show you Exhibit 5. And I'll ask, can you identify that?
Well, that is definitely in the, that's the area, that's the fire scene.
And I direct your attention to evidence marker number 7, and is that depicts where the body, that's where the body is. You can look up on the screen. See that? You see marker 7?
Yes.
And is that the area where you retrieve debris, looking for accelerants?
It is.
And once you receive those items, once you obtain the debris, you take that down, Chip. Did you place those items in the cans?
Yes, I did.
Show you 3 cans which are marked Exhibit 17, A, B, and C. And are these the cans that you would have obtained that night filled with debris?
It looks like the cans. Yes, that's it.
And you submitted, one of these is leaking. And you submitted that to the TBI crime lab, is that correct?
Yes.
And that would have, and actually, Agent Foster, you gave those items to Special Agent Hodge that night to take to the lab.
Yes, I did.
And you also gave Agent Hodge a Zippo lighter fluid can, which was obtained at the scene that night, and you turned that over to her.
Yes, I did.
And there were several folks from bomb and arson working the scene that night. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
You were there, and Ms. Hutchison, I believe, William Barker. There were several people working the scene.
Yes, there were.
And as far as additional work on this case, is that the extent of your involvement?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Just one moment. One other matter. When you all collect a sample, do you photograph where you collected it and leave your gloves next to that location?
Generally, we do.
What is the reason for that?
That is to show that you didn't cross-contaminate from one to the other. So you try to leave your gloves at each area that you took a sample.
Okay, and that's for your purposes. So gloves left around that scene would have been where you left your gloves where you collected debris?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Does your dog know how long the accelerant has been there?
No, sir.
And it basically knows different types of accelerants, correct?
Yes, it's alerting to the changes to the chemical makeup.
Right.
Yeah.
And basically accelerant is a term of art maybe, but it means gas, petroleum products, anything like that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so certainly common household everyday items can be accelerants, correct?
Yes, some can.
Okay. You dropped gloves at the point where you picked up where you picked up debris to show that there was no cross-contamination, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many different pairs of gloves did you leave at the crime scene?
I do not recall, but I know that we collected those 3 samples in the can, so I would say there's at least that amount from me. And then the Zippo lighter. So I would say at least, 8.
8 gloves, 4 pair?
Yes.
Have any idea where they are today?
Don't have a clue.
Okay. You didn't document how many pairs of gloves were there, correct?
No, sir.
Color, correct? You didn't document that?
No, sir.
You got there fairly early.
Well, it was nighttime, I guess, you mean in the course of the investigation?
You recall what time you got there at the scene?
I'm sorry, say it again,
Do you
sir.
recall what time you got there at the scene?
I do not.
But you kind of remember the VCRT truck getting there, correct?
I do.
So that means they came after.
Absolutely.
I mean, just common sense, correct?
That's correct.
And you entered the scene before they got there.
Yes.
And did Mr. Barker go with you?
Yes, Mr. Barker was there when I arrived.
Okay. Did he go into the crime scene
Yes.
before VCRT got there?
Yes.
Do you know what color gloves he was wearing?
I do not.
Did your dog, did it enter the crime scene before VCRT get there?
I think so.
Were you ready for the question? Okay, thanks, sir. Sit down. Please stand for before you go.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Call Darby Hutchison.
Darby Hutchison. And who said thanks to me? Who was your wife? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Give a seat. If you'll tell me what the first name and last name and spell them both.
Yes, Darby, D-A-R-B-Y, Hutchison, H-U-T-C-H-I-S-O-N.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And questions?
You've already told us your name.
Yes, ma'am.
And Agent Hutchison, tell us where you work.
I work for the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
Okay, and out of the Nashville, the office is, the crime lab is in Nashville.
The crime lab is in Nashville. I work
Okay.
out of the Knoxville office.
Okay, and what is your position with TBI?
I'm a special agent.
And in what area are you assigned?
I work in the Criminal Investigation Division, and my primary responsibility is arson investigation.
All right, and if you would tell us a little bit about your education that led up to your obtaining this position.
I've been through certified fire investigator classes over the last 14 years, from the time when I was with Bomb and Arson. I have attended fire and arson investigation in Emmitsburg, Maryland, through the National Fire Academy, also through the State Fire Codes Academy in Bell Buckle, Tennessee. I have gone through different online trainings through the National Fire Protection Agency in order to maintain the latest research.
And how long have you been working in law enforcement?
I've been in law enforcement over 20 years.
Okay. And what number of those years have related to fire investigation and origin?
14.
Okay. And have you been allowed to testify as an expert in the state of Tennessee previously?
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, I would offer her as an expert in the area of fire investigation and cause and origin.
Yes, sir. All right, I will give you a repeat.
Were you called out to a fire scene back on May the 17th of 2016?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall the time that you were called out and when you would have arrived there?
I would have got the call around 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
Okay.
And it takes me about 3 hours to get there, so it was around dark by the time I got there.
Okay. And when you arrived there, who all was there?
Agent Mark Wilson with the TBI, there were agents of the Tennessee Bomb and Arson Section there, as well as the Sheriff's Office, the DA's office, fire personnel.
And the VCRT team, are you familiar with them?
Yes, ma'am.
Were they already there?
No, ma'am, they were en route, or they were in the process of being called out.
Okay, and did you all wait until they arrived and did their investigation before you went in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and likewise for the bomb and arson group?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and is there a reason that the TBI lab goes in first? Or the VCRT team, I guess, would be a more accurate statement?
In this case, it was that they were looking for different,
Objection, Judge.
What's your question?
I don't know how she would know the reason why she was part of the testimony.
Go ahead.
it was my understanding that they were looking for different types of evidence than simply the fire scene itself. So it was appropriate that they would go in first so that we did not disturb what they were looking for.
And so you had to wait for a period of time until they arrived, did their investigation in the scene before you went in?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you go in before or after Agent Foster and Leo?
We conducted our scene investigation after Agent Foster and Leo.
Okay. And when you went in, what was your initial activity within the scene there?
Well, we do an initial walkthrough and look at, examine the scene to determine the area of origin of the fire, and everything we do sort of goes around that. We look for areas of most damage and least damage, and we work from the least amount of damage to the most.
And in this particular instance, did you find an area of most damage?
Yes, ma'am.
And where was that?
That was the area on and around Mr. Ridge's body.
Okay. And describe for the ladies and gentlemen how you determine what your explanation is of the area of most damage.
The entire building had a lot of soot, visible soot, but there was very little fire damage other than what was right around Mr. Ridge's body. All areas that we saw, that things that were charred and different smoke patterns, fire patterns, all went back to him. Specifically, above his head, there was a fluorescent light that was heavily damaged by heat. We could see that the light fixtures on either side of him were less damaged. From where he lay, when we looked to the back of his head, starting at the back of his head and moving around to the left, there was a large safe, a metal safe, that had a visible V pattern, which is a smoke pattern, and we could see that originated from him. The V started with him and worked its way out toward the safe. To his left, there was a wooden table that had charring. Again, that charring came from the side of Mr. Ridge's body. It was sitting very close to him. To his right, there was a metal and wood composite, kind of like an office desk, the metal desks. The wood top had charring from the bottom up, which is again from the area of the floor around Mr. Ridge. The metal of that desk had been annealed, which simply means it was twisted due to heat, exposure to heat. And those things came from the ground level, from low, again, from around his body.
And it would take a significant amount of heat to cause that twisting of the metal on that desk.
Sustain. Rephrase the question.
Based on your observations of that desk and the metal there, what were you able to determine?
That he had been exposed to heat long enough to cause the metal to weaken and twist.
And the area of the body itself, what did you observe?
Mr. Ridge's body,
Yes.
he was severely damaged from the fire on his front side. There was not very much skin or tissue left on his face, torso, his legs. However, the back side of his body, once we examined him and rolled him over, he did still have fleshy tissue. There was some protected clothing he was laying on, and there was blood.
On the underneath of the body?
Underneath the body, yes, ma'am. On the front of the body, he was very severely burned. There wasn't any fleshy tissue left.
And was there some indication from that observation as to the area of the origin of the fire on his body?
Yes, it would be the front side of his body.
And as far as the area going out, you've described the area surrounding it and going out from there. Was there a cessation of fire damage?
Yes,
From the contained area?
yes, ma'am.
Did you find at a different location another area of fire?
Yes, the next day, once the sun came up and we were able to open some more doors, there was a small shelf in a hallway leading to the back door that had just whatever was on top of it, like the available combustibles of the shelf, had burned, but that fire was not connected to the fire around Mr. Ridge.
And in your investigation and observations there at the scene, particularly dealing with the fire set on Mr. Ridge's body and the area surrounding that, do you do an examination to see if there are other factors that might have contributed to the start of the fire?
Yes, ma'am. We look for anything that could have accidentally caused the fire in any fire scene that we look at. In this case, there was nothing that we could see on Mr. Ridge's body or immediately surrounding his body. Behind the metal desk, there was one electrical outlet which was taken out of the wall and examined, and there was no evidence that it had malfunctioned or there was no evidence that it had anything to do with starting the fire.
In situations of these types of fires that you observed here in the Valley Pond, did it appear that some accelerant had been used?
Yes, based on just the way he was burned. Yes, ma'am.
So an accelerant had been applied to his body in the course of the setting of the fire?
Yes, the way he looked, we thought that very well could have happened, and therefore we asked that the canine be brought in to verify that.
All right, and that was, he came in after you had done?
Yes, we asked after the initial walkthrough, when you look at something, then we let him do that first because we don't want to damage anything he's looking for.
Okay. And based on your training and experience and your observations there at the scene, were you able to make a conclusion as to the nature of that fire?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was that?
We concluded that was an intentionally set fire.
Just and Agent Hutchison, if I could that'd be all. Mr. Lipton, may I have some questions?
Ma'am, the fire scene examination began on May 17th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Completed on May 18th.
Yes, sir.
You were there, and Investigator William Barker was there, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you started before midnight, correct, examining the scene?
Yes, that's when we did our initial walkthrough.
Okay. And you walked through, did you walk through with protective equipment?
What type of protective equipment?
Any type?
Yes, we had our gloves on, and we did not touch anything during the walkthrough. We don't start actually processing the scene to do that.
Did you leave the gloves there at the
I
crime
did not.
scene?
Not inside the scene, no, sir. Mine were not.
Did you document? You didn't document where you left what you did with the gloves, correct?
No, that is correct, sir.
Okay. And you didn't determine when the accelerant was placed there, did you?
I'm sorry,
You didn't determine when the accelerant was placed there, did you?
when the accelerant was placed there? No, sir, I did not.
I have no further questions. One second. Nothing further, Judge.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You said that, please stay supported, free to go.
Thank you, sir.
Lunch, we're going to take our lunch break now. What I need you to do is I need you to leave your legal pads in the setting there. But I also wanted to make sure that we remind you that you cannot discuss the case with your fellow jurors or each other. Two y'all go outside, smoke a cigarette, y'all may go out and talk about the case. You don't even look like after you've heard all the evidence in the case, and I've given my final instructions. Anybody do that? Yes, you may. And we'll stand in recess until 1 o'clock. All right?